Have you ever felt it? The deafening silence of your twin flame. That sudden, gut-wrenching quiet that makes you question everything. It's a void so huge it feels like abandonment, a stillness that kicks up a storm of doubt and fear inside you. You check your phone again. You replay old conversations. You search for any sign that the connection you felt, that soul-shaking, I know you connection, was actually real. But what if that silence isn't a rejection? What if it's actually a sacred invitation? Within the spiritual belief system of the twin flame journey, this silence is seen not as the end, but as the start of the most profound awakening. It's a concept that reframes the silence not as a punishment, but as a divine pause, an ultimate test designed to clear the path for a reunion that's stronger than anything you've known before. Now, before we get into the heart of this, it's vital to be clear. The twin flame idea is a spiritual belief. It's a way some people interpret a uniquely powerful soul connection. There is no scientific evidence to prove it exists, but for those who feel they are on this path, understanding its supposed stages can be incredibly healing and bring a lot of clarity. So if you're living in that silent phase right now and trying to make sense of it all, stay with me. We're going to explore the belief that her sacred silence is the very thing that triggers his soul's final transformative awakening. And if you're on this journey, if these words are already hitting home, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. This community is a place for exploring these sacred connections, offering support and a little guidance as you navigate your own path. The Great Shift, her sacred retreat. To understand his awakening, you first have to understand her retreat. This silence rarely comes from a place of anger or not caring. The theory within this spiritual path is that it begins when the divine feminine energy, that intuitive, creative, wise energy in all of us, makes a brave choice. She chooses herself. For a long time, the person holding the divine feminine energy in the bond is often the one who overgives. She holds all the emotional weight, sends out waves of unconditional love, and tries to heal, fix, and understand everything to keep the connection alive, often burning herself out in the process. She becomes the chaser, pouring her energy into a connection that isn't ready to meet her halfway. But then, a shift happens. It's not the point where she gives up on him. It's the point where she comes home to herself. She realizes her worth isn't tied to his approval, her peace doesn't depend on his presence, and her wholeness can't be found in someone else. This is a huge spiritual awakening for her. She stops chasing and learns to become the ocean, whole and complete on her own. Her silence is the sound of her taking her power back. She turns her energy inward, focusing on her own healing, her own joy, and her own purpose. She sets energetic boundaries, not as walls to keep him out, but as a sacred space to honor herself. It's a loving detachment that says, I love you, but I have to love myself more. This radical self-love is the first and most important step. In the language of this belief, she stops being the frantic lighthouse keeper trying to guide his ship and becomes the lighthouse itself, shining, stable, and radiant just for herself. The echoing void, his unraveling. For the divine masculine energy, the energy of action, logic, and doing, this shift feels like an earthquake. For as long as this dynamic was going on, he was on the receiving end of her light. Her constant presence, her love, her focus, even her chasing, was an energetic support system, a crutch he probably didn't even realize he was leaning on. When she pulls that energy back to reinvest in herself, he's left in a sudden, shocking void. The silence he hears isn't just the lack of texts or calls, it's the lack of her energy holding him up. He is left completely alone with himself, his feelings, his baggage, and the booming echo of her absence. At first, this void triggers his ego. Confusion might turn into anger or defensiveness. He might try to rationalize it, tell himself the connection wasn't a big deal, or even try to blame her. His logical mind can't make sense of the soul-level change that's happened. The silence becomes a mirror. And for the first time, he's forced to look at his own reflection without the soft filter of her energy. He starts to feel the full weight of the loss. It's not just losing a person. It's losing a feeling. That feeling of home, of being truly seen, of a connection that made the ordinary world feel magical. This sense of being incomplete, like a vital part of him is missing, becomes impossible to ignore. The usual distractions like work, hobbies, or other people suddenly feel empty. The hole she left behind can only be filled by the one thing he's been running from: his own soul. The trigger point, the ego's final stand. And this is where the real test begins. The silence and the emptiness become the ultimate trigger. In these spiritual circles, this phase is often called the dark night of the soul. It's a deep spiritual crisis where the ego's entire reality starts to fall apart. Everything he thought he knew about himself, love, and life gets thrown into question. The ego, that part of him built on fear, control, and what society expects, fights hard to stay in charge. It's the part of him terrified of being vulnerable, the part that thinks being strong means burying emotions, and the part that resists surrendering to a connection this deep. But the soul's pull toward union is believed to be a much stronger force. The silence is said to act like an alchemical fire. It's a crucible designed to burn away everything that isn't real. All the fears, insecurities, and illusions that stopped him from showing up fully in the connection are dragged into the light so he can finally face them. He might go through intense emotional pain, a crushing sense of loneliness, and a deep sadness. It's a raw and incredibly uncomfortable process, but it's considered a necessary one. This is the ego's last stand before it dissolves. He is forced to face his deepest wounds, the fear of being abandoned, of not being good enough, of a love so big it feels like it could destroy him. He has to learn to let go of controlling the outcome and just surrender. The battle isn't against her, it's a battle for his own soul, happening within him. Her silence isn't the weapon, it's the sacred space where this fight takes place. He has to let the old him die to be reborn as the man who is ready for her. A word of caution, differentiating the test from toxicity. Okay, we absolutely have to pause here, because this next part is critical. This spiritual framework of a twin flame test is meant to describe a journey of healing and growth. But these ideas can easily be confused with, or even used to excuse, genuinely unhealthy and toxic relationships. Let's be crystal clear. The kind of sacred silence for mutual growth we're talking about is not the same thing as the manipulative, punishing, silent treatment. In what is considered a healthy spiritual process, the separation, while painful, should lead both people toward more self-love and wholeness. The goal is the growth of both souls. In contrast, toxic silence is used to punish, control, and manipulate. It creates anxiety and codependency, not strength and self-worth. You have to be brutally honest with yourself. Is this silence inspiring you to go inward, to heal and find your own strength? Or is it leaving you in a constant state of anxiety, chipping away at your self-worth, and making you feel like your happiness depends entirely on their return? True spiritual growth should empower you, not break you. If a connection constantly makes you feel unsafe, makes you question your sanity, or forces you to abandon your own needs, it's essential to get support and look at the situation from a place of real-world psychological health, not just through the lens of a spiritual belief. Remember, a truly divine connection would never ask you to sacrifice your own peace and safety. The awakening, the dawn of a new consciousness. So what happens when he finally surrenders and the ego dissolves? What emerges is a powerful awakening. After walking through the fire of that dark night of the soul, he starts to see things with a new clarity. The resistance is gone, replaced by a deep, quiet understanding. He no longer thinks about the connection with his logical mind. He feels it with the wisdom of his heart. He finally gets that her silence wasn't a rejection, but an act of love, a gift of space that forced him to find his own way back to himself. He understands she wasn't leaving him. She was showing him by example what it means to be whole. This awakening brings a few key changes. First, emotional maturity. He learns to sit with his feelings instead of running from them, understanding that real strength is in vulnerability. Second, he takes responsibility. He stops blaming the world or her for his pain and realizes his inner world is his to heal. He starts to deal with his past and his wounds, not because he has to, but because he truly wants to be free. Finally, he begins to connect with his own purpose. The belief is that he understands this connection isn't just a romance, but a sacred partnership with a higher mission. He starts doing his own inner work and building himself into the man he was always meant to be. His awakening isn't about getting her back. It's about becoming worthy of the love that was there all along, just waiting for him to be ready for it. He's no longer running from love. He is rising to meet it. The reunion, the merging of two whole souls. When a reunion happens after this kind of awakening, it can't be a return to the way things were. Both people have changed too much. The divine feminine energy is no longer chasing. She is a sovereign person, complete in herself. The divine masculine energy is no longer running. He is an awakened soul, standing in his own power. The silence is finally broken, not with a lonely text message, but with an energetic shift that, according to the belief, is felt by both. There might be synchronicities, meaningful dreams, or just a powerful intuitive pull that brings them back together. When they do start talking again, the communication is different. It's honest, vulnerable, and built on a whole new level of respect. This reunion is understood as a merging of two whole souls. It's not two halves finally feeling complete. It's two complete individuals choosing to build something together. The dynamic isn't based on neediness or fear anymore, but on real love, freedom, and a shared desire to keep growing. Those who follow this path believe this kind of union has a purpose that goes beyond just the two of them. It's said that when two twin flames reunite in this higher state of consciousness, they anchor a new frequency of unconditional love on the planet. Their partnership becomes living proof of love's power to transform, not just for them, but as a beacon of hope for everyone. It is the end of the final test, a journey out of painful silence and into the deep peace of a love that has been tested, earned, and finally fully realized. This journey through the silence is one of the hardest and most transformative experiences a person can have. Every story is different. I'd love for you to share your own experience with the silence in the comments. What did it feel like? What lessons did you learn? Your story might be the one thing someone else needs to read today to feel less alone and keep faith in their own journey. Let's be there for each other. So if you find yourself in the middle of that deep, sacred silence, try to remember what it's believed to be. It's not an empty space, but a cosmic incubator, holding the possibility of a total rebirth. Within this spiritual framework, the silence isn't a sign that the connection is over. It's often the strongest sign that the most important work is finally getting done. Her retreat into her own power is what creates the space for him to finally face his. Her love for herself becomes the catalyst for his own awakening. It's seen as the final test that burns away fear and dissolves the ego, clearing the way for a reunion built not on a fleeting romance, but on the solid ground of two whole, awakened souls. Trust the process, trust the timing, and more than anything, use this time to fall completely and deeply in love with yourself. When you do that, you become the magnet that pulls everything that is meant for you back home. The silence will eventually break, and when it does, it won't be the end of a painful chapter, but the true beginning of the love story you were always meant to live.